Welcome to the New Sentinel. Today, we assess the reported Supreme Court decision described as Trump v. Barbara, dated June 30th, 2026.
Our focus is narrow. The 14th Amendment Citizenship Clause, the reported rejection of an executive order, and what remains unverified.
An immediate caution matters. The material identifies a case name, date, constitutional issue, and outcome, but provides no opinion text.
That means we cannot responsibly attribute precise legal reasoning, vote counts, quotations, or doctrinal tests to the court.
We can, however, analyze the stated premise. An original executive order was struck down in a citizenship dispute.
The central constitutional language is commonly called the Citizenship Clause, located in the 14th Amendment.
Its relevant text begins with a broad rule: people born or naturalized in the United States are citizens.
The clause also contains a qualification involving persons subject to the jurisdiction of the United States.
That qualification is often the main point of disagreement in birthright citizenship debates.
A dispute over executive action would likely turn on whether a president may redefine citizenship eligibility without congressional legislation or constitutional amendment.
Based only on the supplied outcome, the executive order did not survive judicial review.
The safest conclusion is limited. The court reportedly found the order legally insufficient under the governing constitutional framework.
That does not establish every possible reason for invalidation. Courts can strike action down on several distinct grounds.
Possible grounds include conflict with constitutional text, conflict with precedent, lack of executive authority, or defects in implementation.
Without the decision itself, those are analytic possibilities, not findings we should present as established facts.
The intelligence question is therefore twofold. What constitutional boundary was likely protected, and what operational consequences follow from that boundary?
Start with institutional power. Executive orders direct executive branch activity, but they do not amend the Constitution.
They also cannot reliably override statutes or binding constitutional interpretations merely by announcing a different policy preference.
If the reported order attempted to narrow citizenship at birth, it would confront a high legal barrier.
The barrier is especially high when the policy changes individual status, documentation, and access to federal or state systems.
Citizenship is not a minor administrative category. It affects voting, travel documents, eligibility, family security, and political membership.
That practical significance increases the likelihood of rapid litigation by affected families, advocacy groups, states, and public institutions.
A court reviewing such an order would likely ask what legal source authorizes the executive branch to impose it.
It would also examine whether the Constitution already resolves the question more directly than an executive interpretation can.
The reported invalidation therefore signals a constraint on unilateral action, at least in the circumstances described.
It does not, by itself, answer every future dispute involving immigration, jurisdiction, naturalization, or citizenship documentation.
That distinction matters. A narrow ruling could preserve one constitutional rule while leaving adjacent policy questions open.
A broader ruling could instead restrict future administrations from attempting similar changes through executive action.
Because scope is unknown, responsible listeners should separate the reported outcome from assumptions about its reach.
Now let us frame the original order's apparent vulnerability. The most basic issue is constitutional hierarchy.
A president acts within the executive branch. The 14th Amendment operates at a higher level of legal authority.
Where an executive directive conflicts with a constitutional command, the directive cannot control.
A second vulnerability is separation of powers. Fundamental citizenship rules may require legislative action or constitutional change, depending on the issue.
A third vulnerability is legal continuity. Courts often evaluate whether an administration has supplied a valid basis for departing from settled practice.
Again, we cannot say which vulnerability the court relied upon. We can only identify the likely pressure points.
For policymakers, that uncertainty is not trivial. The remedy depends on the reason an order failed.
If the failure rested on constitutional text, revised wording may not cure the problem.
If it rested on procedural shortcomings, an administration might try a different process, although constitutional limits would still apply.
If it rested on lack of statutory authority, Congress would become central to any future effort.
If it rested on precedent, future litigation would likely focus on whether that precedent remains controlling or distinguishable.
The report should therefore avoid a common error, treating a struck-down order as proof that every related policy is forbidden.
The inverse error is equally serious, treating a failed order as a drafting problem when the barrier may be constitutional.
We will now apply a MOST analysis: mission, objectives, strategy, and tactics.
Mission: preserve a legally durable and administratively coherent definition of citizenship consistent with constitutional requirements.
For government institutions, the mission also includes preventing confusion for hospitals, state agencies, passport offices, and affected families.
For courts, the mission is narrower: resolve the dispute using constitutional text, lawful authority, and the record before them.
For civil society, the mission may be to ensure people understand the practical consequences without amplifying unverified claims.
Objective 1. Identify exactly what the ruling held, including its legal standard, scope, and remedy.
That objective remains incomplete because the supplied material does not include the opinion or a verified summary.
Objective 2. Determine who is covered by the ruling and whether any injunction applies nationwide, locally, or only to named parties.
Objective 3. Establish whether government agencies must change forms, guidance, databases, or eligibility determinations.
Objective 4. Communicate continuity clearly, especially where families may fear an immediate change in citizenship status.
Objective 5. Monitor follow-on litigation, agency responses, legislative proposals, and any clarifying judicial orders.
Strategy begins with verification. Obtain the official ruling before making claims about its holdings or implications.
Next, separate holding from commentary. A court's binding rule may be much narrower than surrounding political debate.
Then map implementation dependencies. Citizenship classification can affect records across federal, state, local, and private systems.
A sound strategy also uses precise language, say reported, described, or alleged where the factual record is incomplete.
Finally, plan for several legal scenarios rather than betting on a single interpretation of an unseen decision.
Tactically, institutions should pause any unsupported policy shift that assumes the executive order remains enforceable.
They should issue plain operational guidance only after competent legal review of the actual ruling and any injunction.
Communications teams should avoid telling families that citizenship has changed unless an authoritative legal source confirms it.
Legal teams should build a timeline: order issuance, challenges, lower court proceedings, Supreme Court action, and subsequent implementation.
Analysts should track whether the court addressed standing, merits, remedy, jurisdiction, or only a temporary procedural question.
Those categories matter because a procedural ruling may not settle the underlying citizenship clause dispute.
Now for SWOT, strengths. The reported ruling appears to reinforce a constitutional check on unilateral executive action.
A second strength is predictability. Preserving established citizenship rules can reduce administrative uncertainty and conflicting interpretations.
A third strength is institutional clarity. Agencies generally function better when status rules rest on durable legal authority.
A fourth strength is judicial review itself. The reported outcome shows that contested executive action can receive constitutional scrutiny.
Weaknesses begin with incomplete information. Without the opinion, analysts cannot reliably define the ruling's boundaries.
Another weakness is public confusion. A high-profile citizenship dispute can create fear even when immediate legal effects are limited.
There is also implementation complexity. Different agencies may interpret guidance inconsistently unless leadership provides clear instructions.
A further weakness is political framing. Participants may describe the decision in absolute terms that exceed what the court actually held.
Opportunities include improved legal literacy about constitutional hierarchy, executive authority, and the difference between citizenship and immigration status.
The decision could also prompt agencies to modernize coordination, records practices, and public-facing explanations of citizenship documentation.
For journalists and educators, there is an opportunity to distinguish verified holdings from speculation and rhetoric.
For elected officials, the dispute could clarify where statutory action is possible and where constitutional limits govern.
Threats include deliberate misinformation, fabricated quotations, and false claims that the ruling instantly changes every person's status.
Another threat is operational overreaction, where institutions alter procedures before understanding the ruling's actual legal effect.
Litigation risk also remains. Unclear guidance can produce inconsistent decisions, additional lawsuits, and unequal treatment across jurisdictions.
A final threat is reputational damage. Organizations that state unverified legal conclusions may lose trust when corrections emerge.
From an intelligence perspective, the key assessment is cautious. The reported outcome suggests the order exceeded a legally enforceable boundary.
Confidence is low on the exact rationale, because no ruling text, vote, remedy, or lower court history was provided.
Confidence is higher on the structural point. An executive order is subordinate to the Constitution and subject to judicial review.
Listeners should be alert to language claiming the court redefined all birthright citizenship law, unless that claim is tied to the opinion.
They should also be wary of claims that the executive branch can simply reissue the same policy with different wording.
Whether a revised approach is viable depends entirely on the judgment's reasoning, the relevant statutes, and constitutional doctrine.
For affected people, the practical recommendation is measured. Seek authoritative guidance before making decisions involving documents, travel, or family status.
For public institutions, the recommendation is operational. Preserve records, document decisions, and avoid improvised legal interpretations.
For analysts, the next collection priority is the complete decision, including concurrences, dissents, and the precise relief ordered.
The second priority is implementation guidance from the responsible agencies and courts, not political summaries alone.
The third priority is impact data. Watch for denied documents, delayed services, changed forms, or conflicting state practices.
The fourth priority is narrative tracking. Identify claims circulating publicly and classify them as verified, disputed, or unsupported.
This is exactly the kind of issue where legal language and real-world consequences meet quickly.
It also shows why constitutional reporting requires restraint. The loudest interpretation is often not the most accurate one.
The New Sentinel examines complex stories across public affairs, culture, security, and the forces shaping daily life.
Our aim is useful context, clear distinctions, careful analysis, and discussions grounded in what can actually be established.
For this case, the established premise is limited but consequential. The described executive order was reportedly struck down.
The unresolved question is why, precisely, and that answer must come from the court's actual ruling rather than inference.
Until then, the durable conclusion is straightforward. Constitutional citizenship questions demand more than executive assertion.
They demand lawful authority, careful judicial interpretation, and public communication that does not outrun the evidence.
That concludes this intelligence brief on the reported Trump v. Barbara decision and the Citizenship Clause.
Stay informed, examine the underlying record, and treat certainty with care when the primary legal text is unavailable.